Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last session for Symposium. It's kind of sad, isn't it? It's almost over already. But we have an amazing last set of speakers for you. So this session is around fluid experiences for mobile. You can see we've got a great list of speakers here. But of course, we know how important mobile is. It went from 10 years ago, yeah, we probably should do something about that, to, yep, we need an app, to, okay, we've got an app, but do we spend more time on that or not? And now it's just part of our daily lives, and we need to really be thinking about it as a first-class citizen. So a lot of that is what we're going to talk about today. And to kick it off, we're going to have Greg Moore come up from National Australia Bank and really talk to us about some cool stuff. So Greg, come up and join us. Welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share with you, a journey that we've just commenced around integrating Adobe Campaign into our mobile app. So hopefully, at the end of this, or my piece, you'll get a bit of a feel of where we've come from and certainly where we're going. We're only on the start of that journey, and there's a fair way for us to go. Okay. Just to give a bit of an overview, at National Australia Bank, we've been on an enterprise journey through what we're calling our One NAB plan, and one of the things that I suppose we've been a little bit behind our competitors with is in our digital space, and we're really focusing on how do we uplift that experience for our customers, knowing that in today's world of dealing with customers, digital certainly is where most of our customers want to interact. Our capability has sort of lagged. Banks traditionally have had, we're still in that world of legacy systems that have really sort of held us back from moving forward in the digital space. My area, or the area that I work in within marketing, is predominantly focused around campaign execution and sort of having sort of 17, 18 years experience with dealing with the campaign management tool. As we move into this digital space, it's the tool that we had has sort of really held us back from moving forward in the digital space. So probably 2 years ago, we sort of made the decision that we need to look at our campaign management tool in line with our strategy to uplift it and see how we can sort of move forward from where we were. So I'm going to talk about that transition that we've made. Also, our mobile app, as I mentioned before, was sort of our old version was sort of lagging our competitors, and we really need to do something about it. So the timing just sort of became right when we're looking at our campaign management tool, we're rebuilding our mobile app. How do we bring both those together to really improve that customer experience? So the things I'll talk about is, as we go through this, is I'll share with you some of the use cases that we piloted, because we're probably still in that pilot sense in relation to that integration between Campaign and the mobile app. How we're going, and then I'll leave with where we want to scale that to. So a little bit of background, just to give you an idea of where we're coming from. Our existing tool, or vendor tool for Campaign, was largely built around batch. So our data was at least a minimum of a day old when we first identified our customers we wanted to target for one-to-one messages in our apps. It was fed to another database, and it sat in there, and it could sit in there for up to a week before the customer might come to either our desktop version of internet banking or our mobile app. A lot can change in that 1 week. So by the time we serve up that message, it's no longer relevant. The other issues we had, between our desktop and our mobile app, 2 different content management systems. Our marketers, it was very difficult for them because they're having to do a lot of rework and dealing with multiple teams. Trying to get something up and running fairly quickly was quite time consuming and difficult to do. And hence why it became, well, okay, for this type of communication, I'm going to do the desktop, or I'm going to do the in-app message. So it wasn't really cohesive or seamless for the customer. So what do we do? When there's a fair bit of work that was done in the digital space around research with the customers. We want to throw our old app. What should the new one look like? What sort of functionality should it provide? And in our case, specifically for us, is how do we target messages specifically for that customer within that app? In particular, we sort of came up with different ways that the customer wanted to see the messages. You know, they were very strong around if it's a promotional offer, do not overtake the screen. You know, do not, I want to come here and do my banking, show me, sure, a promotional offer, but don't take over the screen. So on the left-hand side there, that, you know, it's fairly small, that space around the way we display promotional offers. But once the customer wants to interact with that, then it goes to a full page overlay where they can get that level of detail. They want to know more about that particular offer. On the bottom there, when they click on that find out more, it would redirect them to another page within our website that allowed them to go straight through to an application if they decided to proceed. The third point there is at the top of the screen there, we call it our carousel. This is where customers want to be able to, you know, help me as a customer use this particular app. How do I get most out of it? So service-based messages or things around, you know, functionality within that app would be displayed in that top carousel piece. And if there's multiple messages there, they would just rotate around that the customer could interact with. Third one there is just when you're on a particular page, you know, with something specific to that page, we could provide them with what we're calling a tooltip or a feature exposure specifically for that page. The whole experience when using the app and interacting with these messages is very much around, I want to be able to do it in the app, I don't want to have to go somewhere else to do it. Our old capability, if you were on the mobile app and you wanted to go and do something, you had to go and log into the desktop and then do it. It's not a great experience. This was Adobe campaign for NAB. You know, we've had an association with Adobe for quite some time with a lot of the other applications, especially around analytics and audience manager, target, experience manager, and campaign has been the latest addition to our application suite. As I mentioned, our existing tool that we had, very much built on batch, was very difficult to do. We've invested heavily with Adobe. It made sense that if we're going to pilot a new application, we went with Adobe Campaign. And this was really the first opportunity for us to really try and bring the stack, if you like, together to help us. So what we built was, you know, we've got Campaign sitting over top of our marketing warehouse where all our data is to do all our analytics and identify our customers. Adobe Analytics linked into the app. You know, that's where we're identifying the customers and obviously tracking the usage through the app. Audience Manager, the infrastructure that underpins Campaign for our pilot really isn't scaled to be able to deal with every log-on of customers on the application. So we've had to contain which customers are actually going to see our messages and as a pilot group. So we actually used Audience Manager as to create that test group of customers to control who's coming through to Campaign via the app. And Experience Manager we're using obviously for the content for especially the promotional offers that you saw there before. So the use cases, we started off with 3 use cases and I'll run through those. We've got a number all lined up to continue on our journey. But in particular, just to try and get that feel for the customer and the experience themselves and what was the interaction like compared to our existing tool. These are our initial use cases. So data remediation was very important for us. As you know, if you haven't got contact information, it's very difficult to have that one-to-one communication with your customers. In this particular case, email is something we've never been strong on at NAB. Traditionally, we were a big direct mail shop. As we've moved to Adobe Campaign, we've really tried to ramp up the usage of email. So in this particular use case, what we did is looked at customers that you know, we tried to contact via email, but we're getting bounce backs, and then using this as the ability to put the message in front of them, and then if they interacted with that message, we'd take them direct to the page within the app where they could update their contact details. As you can see there, you know, about 20% of those customers that we were, you know, following up with that we were unable to contact via email were then updating their email address. And not only that, they were updating the other you know, phone numbers and addresses and that as well. The second one, so this is, you know, the cross-sell. Just looking at, in this particular case, we used a credit card offer. We tried to contact these customers via other channels, you know, traditional customers, email, direct mail. It wasn't having an impact. So we looked at and for all these use cases who were highly engaged in using the mobile app. So that was our start point for our use cases, and our group of customers was people who were regularly interacting with it. And then using this as, or then targeting by the app versus those other channels, again, we're able to get quite good uplift and much better uplift than what we get from those additional channels. But in this particular instance, what the customer would do, and they tap on the message there, it would take them to the landing page, gives them that full detail about what the offer is, and then when they tap on the find out more, takes them to an application form that they can complete online. So everything's done in that one single transaction rather than, again, having to go offline, walk into a branch, or follow it up through there. The third one we used was the tooltip or the feature exposure. Part of the research that was done with the customers when they're designing the look and feel of the app, this was a pain point that the customers were raising with us, especially those that had multiple accounts, trying to understand a whole series of numbers on a page as to which account was which. They wanted the ability to be able to name those accounts, so it just made it easy for them to work with. And especially when they use the quick balance function within the app, just saying that this is for a holiday or this is my savings account or whatever it may be, just made it easier for them. So this was designed purely based on the customer feedback as opposed to us going out. In this particular instance, when the customer is within an account, these customers don't have any of their accounts named. We just provide a message and a tip on how they can update that, and they would do that. So it was about 8% of those customers, again, that were viewing those messages were then naming them. One, it helps the customer, that's great, but it also gives us a little bit more insight from an analytics perspective as well. So we start to get a bit of a feel for what those accounts are being used for by the customer, not just from the transactional data, but when they start naming them, it gives you more insight to be able to use that for other purposes as well. As you can see, for the pilot, we've been running this since early this year. Fantastic results that we're getting compared to what we're getting from those traditional channels. Our old mobile app capability, we're probably getting 3 to 4 times the uplift in response of the message that we're promoting within the app compared to what we were with that old one. Mainly because it's, we're more timely and relevant. Where it's at minimum a day old as far as the data, as opposed to something that's been sitting there a week before they interact with us. But this is really the start of the journey, and we're certainly encouraged by what we've had. It's now about, okay, how do we take this to scale? As I mentioned before, when we put in Adobe Campaign, at that particular time, the infrastructure we put in there was really just to get up a few use cases, test out email, test out SMS, direct mail. Mobile app came along, we were just lucky to fall into that cycle. So now it's about scaling it up. So this next 12 months is about really uplifting our infrastructure, moving ourselves into the cloud so that we can scale and we can handle that 50 million logins a month and have messages for everybody. So Audience Manager, we need to move away from just using it for controlling volumes coming in and actually start using the power of Audience Manager to re-decision what is that best or next best offer to display in each one of those pages. So as customers are interacting on or doing stuff on the website before they go into the app, at least we can use that to reprioritise or use offer management to re-weight those offers to get the best offer for them at that particular time. I don't know if anyone saw my boss, she presented earlier on around for NAB and the journey that we're headed on for what we're calling personalisation. It's about, we've been doing a lot of work within marketing to get a lot more holistic in the way we put our campaigns together. So it's very much bringing this in as part of that journey to make sure we've got consistent messages across all our different touch points and channels. Traditionally we've been very much focused on, I'm running this campaign, it's going to go via this channel and this is how it's going to be done. How do we get that seamless experience across our websites, our physical channels, our mobile app, etc. So we're really doing a lot of work internally from a process perspective to uplift and bring all the channels into play so you've got consistency of messages across all those channels. Stronger integration between the other applications. We need to be using analytics, and we know we need to be using Audience Manager more. Certainly from a content perspective, we want to start integrating all of our campaign content using Experience Manager rather than the CMS within campaign itself. So we really want to tighten that up. As I mentioned before, the last one there, it's our personalisation agenda. This is really about going to scale with all our marketing communications, getting a lot more integrated. We're moving ourselves into the cloud so we can spin up and deal more real time with the app. More spaces within the app, so different pages, different messages for that, but also building in other channels that allows us to be more real time across all our channels. Bit of an insight into to where we've started and where we're going. Long journey to go, but certainly we're very pleased with the results that we've got and looking forward to scaling that up. As I said, we've now starting to build a backlog of use cases, and over the next probably 2 months, we'll have another half dozen more messages being displayed in the app itself. So, thank you, and I'm going to hand it over to Mark, and we'll go from there.
Great, thank you. And Greg will be back for questions later on, so if you're forgetful, write them down, but yeah, he'll be back. So next we're going to transition to Eric Stein. He's going to come up and talk to us. But to introduce where Eric's from, he's from Branch, who's one of our premium Adobe I/O partners, and very important to our mobile story and a strong partner. So Eric, how about you come up? We're going to play a video first.
We all know that mobile has grown tremendously over the past couple of years. The Adobe Digital Insight report that just came out talked about how mobile grew year over year, 89%. But as consumers who are working on mobile all the time and living our lives on our mobile devices, it's really hard to get a good experience.
My role with Branch allows Branch to integrate with some of our products. As Adobe builds additional product capabilities, our joint customers get greater value with Adobe and Branch coming together.
As consumers ourselves, we've all had bad digital experiences where you click on a link and you don't go where you want to go, or you get an error message or something like that. Branch fixes all of that and then helps that marketer not only fix the customer experience, but gain insight into what actually happened downstream once a user has viewed an ad or clicked on an email or something like that.
One of the great things about the Branch integration is a customer delivering an email through Adobe Campaign can use a Branch link to seamlessly connect that email to an open inside of the app. So if a travel or hotel group wants to do a mobile check-in and I get an email to check in, I can click on that link, that Branch link, open the app right into the check-in flow, and it's a connected experience for that user, which is often broken in mobile.
The challenge for many clients today is really integrating the app with the marketing channels that they've used more traditionally. The app is a completely new platform, and all the other channels work on the internet. And so integrating those two different platforms is a huge challenge for marketers.
We need partners in general because oftentimes they are experts in specific areas. The mobile ecosystem is complex and fragmented. Lots of different devices. The app store and that black box causes problems of linking experiences in and out of apps and connected to other channels. And Branch is an expert in this area. They have deep technology in mobile deep linking and acquisition and measurement of campaigns in mobile.
So what Branch does is, with the Experience Cloud, is we help ensure that the campaigns that clients run are seamless and have a great outcome. And then our integration with analytics helps ensure that the data from those campaigns informs the insights that marketers can see with regards to the impact of the campaigns that they've run.
So partnering with them allows us to work with best-of-breed vendors in the mobile space and really drive more value to our joint customers.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Eric Stein, and I am really excited to be here to talk to you a little bit about us. I'll also help walk through some of the remaining presenters. And we all are really here to help share a perspective on how we've addressed some of the challenges with mobile. Branch is focused on mobile, as you just heard, but some of the speakers who will walk through their experiences with mobile, how they've incorporated it into their mobile strategies. And we'll talk about those. And then at the end, we'll have a chance for some Q&A. We'll bring everybody up and you can ask us some questions. Okay, cool. Just a little bit about Branch. We are based in California. We have about 185 employees worldwide. That's 8 offices around the globe. And our best thing about us, I think, is our client list. As you see up here, we have some of the leading brands from around the world: Starbucks, Airbnb, Yelp, Fidelity. I'm proud to say we have some leading Australian brands joining that list as well. And it's across all verticals. All these clients, all you guys as well, are seeing the success that you have with your apps. You see that consumers in your apps engage better, they convert at higher rates, they spend more money. And so all of these clients are finding that opportunity, but also some of the challenges that we talked about in the video of personalizing that experience, of maintaining context. And so clients use Branch to ensure that they can do that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. As Roger more eloquently put it than me, Branch is a preferred partner of Adobe, and we've had a growing relationship with them since actually the beginning of this year. And what that means, other than just being a premier partner, is we work closely with them to ensure that we're understanding client needs, we're understanding how to integrate our technology across the Experience Cloud so that it addresses all these different use cases and clients can get what they need out of that integration. The product level relationship is really where this started for us. We now work together here in Australia, we work together in the States, we work together in Europe, and work on different client opportunities. But it really started at that product level, which is where you need it to be in order to really gain the advantages of the Experience Cloud with Branch. So let me talk a little bit about what Branch does. First of all, clients are using our links. Branch is a linking platform. You need a linking platform because of the fragmented mobile ecosystem. Links have a lot to do in mobile, more than they had to do just on desktop. On mobile, links have to account for all these different standards that are out there. Links have to make sure that, or help ensure that a consumer who clicks on an email, or clicks on an ad, or clicks on any marketing message in any one of those channels on the left, that consumer goes to where is the best place to engage with that consumer. Obviously, if you have the app, the best place to engage the consumer is going to be in the app. If you don't have the app, you want to take them to the desktop and engage consumers there. If you go from, as Roger talked about, the App Store can be a little bit of a black box. So if you're going into the App Store, downloading the app, and then opening the app, you want to be sure you maintain the context so that you're looking for the ultra clean laundry detergent. You find that in the app and not go to the home page and then have to search for it again. We've all had those kind of bad user experiences, and Branch helps solve those. We talk about Branch unifying the mobile experience for consumers, and this is what we're talking about, integrating the app with all those other marketing channels. And it's important for you guys to consider that it's these customer experiences where you're competing today. You're competing not just with your direct competitors, not with another hotel chain if you're a hotel chain, but you're competing with the best companies in mobile. They're setting the bar for consumers. They're building these great experiences, and that sets consumers' expectations for how they ought to be treated on mobile, how the kind of experiences that they want to have with your brand. And if you're not able to deliver those experiences across all these different channels, you're going to lose the consumer. You're going to lose the opportunity to engage with the consumer. And as we all know as consumers ourselves, consumers are a little bit more fickle today than ever. So those experiences are really important. The other part of unifying the experience, other than for the consumer, is for the marketer. The marketer today has the challenge of seeing attribution data across these different platforms, across web and app. So your email campaigns, your ad campaigns are not getting properly attributed for all the events that they might be driving in app. It cuts off visibility. It makes you lack confidence in some of the data that you're seeing, and you don't make great decisions. So Branch, because clients use our links across all those channels, Branch aggregates all that data together and can provide the visibility so that you see what's actually driving activity in-app and on web. And then the great thing that we've built with Adobe is really how we're integrated across the Experience Cloud. So what does this mean? It means it's really easy to set up. You don't have to spend a lot of time integrating Branch, learning new dashboards, all that kind of stuff. And we're seamlessly integrated into the Advertising Cloud, which is actually being built right now. We're integrated into Adobe Campaign. And then all that data gets seamlessly integrated into Adobe Analytics, so you can run lifetime value reports, cohort analyses, those types of things with enhanced data and do the advanced reporting that Branch doesn't have the capabilities to deliver, but we have the data. And then lastly, this red logo, I don't know if any of you recognize it, but that red logo is Launch. It's Adobe's both web tag management solution and SDK for your app. We're integrated into Launch as well, so you can deploy Branch without even needing to call your developers. You just a couple clicks and you're integrated with Branch and delivering some of those great experiences right from desktop, right from the app, wherever it might be. As I mentioned, we have some great Australian brands that are working with us today. And this is one of them, and you can see the mention of how using Branch across channels really drives that customer experience. And that's the types of experiences that we're looking to help clients capitalize on, because it really is a very fluid mobile experience, as the name of this session suggests. And driving that fluid experience across all the channels is important. Lastly, it's the last session of the conference, so you can't go visit our booth. But if you do want to learn more, you can find more information at our website, branch.io, or shoot us an email, adobe@branch.io, and we'd be happy to follow up with you. With that, let me turn it over to Arun, talk a little bit about Adobe and Adobe Analytics' vision for the future.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good luck on your rugby game tomorrow. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, sort of from an Adobe perspective, what is the fundamental thesis behind which, the whole Adobe Analytics and our Analytics Cloud Foundation is all based on, right? And that will give you a perspective on sort of how we look at mobile, how we look at our wonderful partnership with, Branch and other partners, and how do we help customers like NAB and, Guzman E. Gomez, which, who we will hear from. So let's start off with, sort of a slide that you have seen, that Brad Rencher talked about, right? So the business impact of, if you're focused on the experience, the customer experience, it's all about the experience business, and customers, who are focused on that, get a certain kind of business impact. And of course, as I mentioned, Brad talked about this. So instead of going through the numbers, suffice to say that in addition to some of this business impact, there are some things that are not mentioned in the slide. For instance, there is a net promoter score benefit of about 22 points that we have seen for customers that are actually, focused on customer experience business, right? In addition to higher revenue growth rate, there is a very high degree of sort of feedback that we've got, or the agency, in this case, Forrester, that looked into this. So that, customers, the employees of these companies are actually happier, and that translates into, great stuff. The stock performance of customers that are actually, of brands that are focused on customer experience, apparently had an 80 basis points, advantage over the ones that had not done this. And so on and so forth, right? Apparently 90% of the businesses today are focused, on customer experiences. So that's sort of the, fundamental basis for what you've been hearing all through this conference. And that brings us to sort of the Analytics Cloud, right? The Analytics Cloud, again, is basically the foundation of what we will talk about today, what you'll hear about from an, intelligence perspective. So any company that is focused on insights and intelligence, right, are focused, on this whole journey in analytics. 2/3 of the Fortune 100 companies in the world actually use Analytics Cloud to be able to drive the intelligence and analytics throughout their organization. The fundamental way in which we think about, and I will talk about this in a little bit more detail in another slide, is the whole notion of a modern intelligence team, right? So the modern intelligence team essentially are you all, right? The reason that you are all attending this conference is fundamentally the fact that you have to think, and you have to think about how you understand your customers in today's world of, disruptive digital transformation, right, which is changing everything, which we have been talking about for several years. But then you are here to understand how to better do it ahead of your competitors so you can get better, rewards. That includes happier, employees, higher stock prices, and so on and so forth, right? So instead of, focusing on mundane tasks, there are 3 key tenets to which we believe that the modern intelligence team actually is looking for. Let's talk through them really quickly. The first one, 360-degree views, and I'm thinking, for those of you who have not heard of the word 360-degree view, raise your hands. Good, that's what I expected. So you understand what that means, right? It basically means that you are not focused on anything else. You are not focused on reports, fancy charts, everything. You just want to understand your customer across all channels, right? And of course, we'll get to the mobile part in a second. It's a build-up slide, and the build-up, in the interest of time, I didn't want to take too much time because I could go on for, half an hour on this slide, so I just put that into one complicated thing. But the point of the slide is that, you have multiple channels of experience, okay? And you can do a scalability on how scalable these marketing channels are on the y-axis, and of course, the degree of personalization that you have on the x-axis. But fundamentally, they are in digital, they are live voice, like, one-on-one interactions, they are credible sources like analysts and so on and so forth, and of course, the face-to-face. Altogether, there are about 15 to 16 different sources. The point of the 360-degree view is that, you want to make sure that your marketing channels are capturing, and your analytics and intelligence are capturing sort of information from all across these channels, right? Whether it is a personal channel, whether it's a highly scalable channel, whether it's a less personalized channel, or it's a more personalized channel, right? Across the board, you have to make sure that you are collecting the right information at the right time. Now, the other part is, insights for all, and this is sort of, getting into the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, the modern intelligence team. The insights for all is basically, around the notion that when whatever role you have in your company, right, whether it's being a digital analyst or whether it's in finance or whether it's in marketing or whether you're a product analyst or you're a product marketer or so on and so forth, or a product manager, you need insights that are relevant to you, and that monitors how your work is being measured and tracked so that you know what to do to be able to do it better the next time. In other words, sort of following insights and analytics and tracking and progress of your own work as that relates to you. It's a very fundamental thesis that we believe in the Adobe Analytics world, in the Analytics Cloud world, we have to make sure that we are looking at. For the following reason. It all started off, if you remember, maybe about 15 years or so back, right? The whole notion of the enterprise business intelligence, right? This is when you had, pretty much what we these days call legacy software, or, the big business intelligence. And it was essentially catering to the CTO and the CIO organization, right? What I have is, of course, as you can see, all the various functions across an organization, and depending on you guys, you can figure out sort of where you can, map yourselves into. Now, what quickly happened was then the web grew, right? And the need for understanding performance on your website closely became something very important to the heart of the CMO, right? Marketing. What happened then, right? They figured that it's not enough to just monitor the website, but now start attaching marketing metrics and marketing campaigns, and that sort of, drove a whole different, era of emails and, marketing campaigns and so on and so forth. Along that time, that also became a little old, and people started saying, well, we should actually now understand the customer even better. So the notion of customer intelligence grew. And if you see, intelligence and analytics no longer was, confined to the marketing group. It actually expanded on the left to products. And people started to understand, well, how do I need to improve my product so as to have a better customer experience, right? And it went to sales, because sales was now starting to understand, well, my goodness, if I don't understand my customer experience, my sales is going to eventually suffer, right? So at the end of the day, it was the entire customer that we started to monitor. Now, fundamentally, what you heard from Adobe and what I'm going to tell you is this, that we believe that it is very important to deliver insights and data across the board, across all functions in the organization, right? And that is one of the fundamental premises that we have, because at the end of the day, we think that it's a supply chain and the entire matrix of an organization that constitute towards a great customer experience at the end of the day, right? If you have a great product and you don't have great service, I don't need to tell you how good the customer experience will be or not, right? So we look at sort of the entire gamut of the organization and want to make sure that we are delivering insights at the right level that is relevant to all these groups in an organization, right? So that's the second one, 360-degree view, insights for all. All right. Prescriptions at scale. We talked about this, or I think Brad talked about this and Steve Hammond talked about this in the keynote. We have evidence to know that majority of the companies, and feel free to raise your hand if you can relate to this, are spending way too much time in ensuring sanctity of the data in their organization, let alone sort of deriving insights from it. Can anybody relate to this? Like they're busy trying to, sort of do their data organization, their tagging, their, warehousing, and they're worried way too much about the data before even talking about what the data is actually delivering to them. And I'll talk to you a little bit about this towards the end. The notion of trying to get the data, make sense out of the data, process the data, get insights out of the data, and be able to convert that into knowledge and eventually customer value, right? It's towards the latter part of what I said where companies need to basically spend their time, right? Because you would think that if you are getting a solution earlier on, right, that should be able to do the work upfront. And that is exactly what I'm trying to show you here is the evolution of how Adobe Analytics works. There are about 15 to 16 different data sources that you see on the periphery of this chart where we collect the information from. And this is very relevant to what Eric was talking about, because this is where partners like Branch come in, okay? They will give the right contextual insight and the right contextual links into the Adobe Analytics engine for Adobe Analytics to now understand that, yes, now I have the Branch data, so I am very comfortable in understanding across my customer journey where customers who are interacting with mobile apps fit in. Right? So the right contextual information brought from mobile apps or otherwise in a unified fashion help with Adobe Analytics capabilities like Attribution IQ, which some of you might hear or have heard about, which then translates into trying to figure out which of my channels contributed to my ultimate conversion. Okay, and that's been like this age-old problem of attribution. Did I get it through an email campaign? Was it a call, from a call center, or which channel actually helped convert, right? And that is where, we have the attribution IQ engine, but then it's also because of the solutions from branch with these links that gets inserted and ingested into the analytics engine that helps drive this. So the first thing is, make sure that you are collecting the data from all your sources, because you do not want anything less than a 360-degree view of your customer. What's the next part? You then have to leave it and trust to Adobe to be able to use all you heard about Adobe Sensei, the machine learning, and the AI capabilities, right? To be able to then process that data through various features, which I don't have time to get into, but happy to talk about it in person or otherwise. And then, leave it to Adobe Sensei and the capabilities that Adobe Sensei brings in, with again various features of Adobe Analytics, to be able to then take the action with the click of a button, right? You have now taken all the insights that was automated by analytics, Adobe Analytics, and moved it to a marketing campaign, to a personalization engine, to a web content development effort, to an ad optimization, because those are all the actions that you eventually need to take, right? So you leave everything to the, to the Adobe Analytics engine to basically solve for you. And that helps with that last thing I talked about, prescriptions at scale, which is you don't need to be worrying about all of these things. Let someone else take care of it before you can do your value-added predictive work. So towards ending here, depending on which organization you are, you will find yourselves in various stages of your maturity as it comes to your thinking around customer intelligence and analytics and so on and so forth, right? You could go from left. Maybe you're starting some work on data collection and data democratization and orchestration and warehousing and collecting tags and all of that kind of stuff. And there are features at the bottom in the purple circles that will help you do that. Or you can get a little bit more sophisticated around segmentation. You take that a little bit to the right. You now try to enrich that with other data, and I think Greg talked about the integration with Audience Manager. We have the industry's only bidirectional native integration between our DMP engine and analytics, so that we can actually get insights for you across first-party, second-party, third-party data, off-site data, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the third part. And then, of course, finally, if you are yourselves the sensei of analytics, or if you've reached that part in that maturity circle, very advanced folks, and I have someone who I respect highly here, will come shortly after me, Matt Peters from NAB, who understands sort of how it is to sort of go to the extreme right and then talk about things like attribution and propensity modeling and prediction, all of that, right? So the point being, no matter where you are, feel free to jump into the game and take advantage of this. And then finally, of course, and this is a bit of a bragging slide for me, whatever I just told you has been validated by analysts across the board. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It should be very self-evident that you're going to see Adobe on the far right and to the top. So that's all I'm going to say. With that, I'm going to pass this over to Eric, who's going to, I shouldn't have shown this slide.
All right. No, it's okay. I actually had a question for you, Arun, but I think I'm going to save it for Q&A in the interest of time, and we'll pass it over to Matt. Matt, over to you. Talk a little bit about NAB's mobile experience.
Thanks. You've had lunch, you had your blood sugar spike, and now it's sort of come back down, so I know how hard this is. So I'm going to do a couple of favors for you. I'm going to do 3 of them. Number 1, no death by PowerPoint, so I have no slides, so I know how much information we have to take in over these 2 days, so this is going to be nice and easy. Number 2, all the takeouts that we do, give them into, as I've learned from Adobe, golden nuggets. So the key pieces, I'll call them out so you know what to remember from this presentation. And number 3, I hope you're enjoying the thermally neutral chairs that we've got in here with 24 inches of leg room. And I say that because if you were in any of the keynotes yesterday, right, you would appreciate how God awfully uncomfortable those chairs were. You know, it was, you ask anyone, how's your symposium? Really good, but how uncomfortable were those like $2 chairs they got from the reject store? Like, it's like, you know, and I think that's very relevant to what we're here to talk about today. And it's like, wait, what are you talking about? So if you've been drinking the Adobe Kool-Aid for 1 year or 2 or 3 or 6, whatever it is, you know that these guys have cottoned onto the fact that people buy experiences, not product. And everything Adobe do is about experiences. They do it very well at the Symposium, and they have put on an amazing Symposium. You go in there, there's the big screen, there's the lights, there's the fog, you know. But what we remember there is that bit of friction, that the one part of the whole experience, and everything was great, but this one tiny, almost insignificant aspect, comfort of chairs, that's user friction. And that's what we remember, and that's what's important. I think we do, as marketers, a great job on the happy day scenario, but what we need to do is focus on where the things don't go so right, because that's how you have an amazing experience all round. And the way that I try and articulate that is your experience is only as good as the last moment of friction. And that's one of the things that we use Adobe Analytics for when we're measuring our mobile app. So yes, like everyone, we measure all the good things, all the success, all the conversion, the transfers, the logins, all the metrics that we brag about. But what we focus on is where things don't go right. And that's things like, can be the smallest thing like a validation error, a little message, any time that our users encounter a piece of friction. Because by smoothing those out and trying to work out how we can remove them and why they've happened in the first place, can we create a truly nice experience the whole way through our app. And the reason that's important is that our mobile app users are among our most profitable, they're most engaged, and they're the most sticky. They stay with us. So we have to get that right. And one of the great consultants in my team was having a look through mobile app usage just last week. And we're looking at one of those moments of friction, and that's an error you get on the log-on screen. It's the first one. Now, you know, like many Australians, I've got 2 phones. I mean, we love smartphones, and if you separate your work and personal life, you'll have 2. The most basic thing that you do in our app is log on, all right? And we're here talking about fluid experiences. And so with the NAB app, and I pray to the demo gods it'll all work, you know, open our app, got one big button to log in. I look at my phone with Face ID, and that's the end of the logon process. Now, I think back years ago, I'd be putting in my username, my password, maybe a year ago or 18 months ago, I'd be using my fingerprint. Now I launch the app, I look at it, and I'm authenticated. And that's that's what we aim for when we talk about having a fluid experience. But one of the moments that we saw when users are logging on is they get this error message. Maybe their username is incorrect, their NAB ID, and we found a particular cohort more than any other where we saw a spike, and that was in first-time users, right? So that's immediately after you've downloaded our app. It's on first launch. So Adobe Analytics, as part of the SDK, you get lifecycle metrics, and this one was on. This consultant had found it was on first launch. As you would expect, if you're not using our app frequently, or if you're not using internet banking frequently, which most of our customers do, they had trouble logging in. And if they didn't log in successfully on that first attempt, they actually try 3 or 4 times, and after that they give up, and then they never ever use the app again. So we had one launch, and one launch only. If you have trouble logging in on your first launch, we're unlikely to ever see you again. So that's where we identify a moment in that experience that we need to do better. And so it's one thing to know what happened, but you need to understand why. You need to understand the context, where they came from. So if we've spent as marketers a whole lot of effort and money in driving our users to download, or our customers to download this app and use it, we need to make sure that we've made it easy and we recognize where they've come from. That's what I really like about the offering from Branch, particularly as it relates to linking. So my background in web analytics, we can point from an ad campaign, we can point someone to any page on our website, and so we've got an exact place. We can also point and provide some contextual information about the campaign or where they've come from. And we don't often get that opportunity in the mobile space. And so we are always thinking about how do we contextualize. And that's where we use the Audience Manager product in our app. And Greg spoke about this a bit earlier in terms of how we've integrated it with Campaign. So we use Campaign to give a one-to-one message to one of our customers in our app. And Adobe Analytics works with Audience Manager to answer one simple question. This is how I sort of describe this product. Audience Manager, you ask it a question and it gives you a response. The question is, I have a human before me, what do you know about them? And it comes back and tells you everything it knows based on what they've done before. So what pieces of content have they engaged with on our website? What data have we brought in from NAB's backend, from our CRM, based on anything that we know about them? And what things have they been doing in our mobile app? So when we have an opportunity to use Campaign and deliver a very powerful one-to-one message where we see increase in click-through rates up to 18-fold, if we've only got a very limited bandwidth to do that, we need to make the best of the audience and who and how we're going to select them. So we choose which customers are going to be eligible for one of these one-to-one messages and which customers we're not going to show one. And that's how we are using Adobe Analytics and Audience Manager to deliver this sort of connected experience. Now, the challenge we have is that our customers are using more than one device, more than one mobile device, and in some cases up to 3 when we include tablets, and we see them on our website. So if you are using Audience Manager, the feature in there that really enables you here is Profile Merge. And what that does is it says, well, all the signals and attributes and things I saw on this device and on the device that you're on previously or next week, when I can identify it's the same person, because you log in, I'm going to bring those two things together. So we can bring the different mobile devices and those behaviors, as well as all the behavior from, say, your web browser and any of the data that we've managed to bring in from our backend at NAB, so that you just have one view of the customer. And we talked about that 360 view. And that's particularly relevant when you're delivering a one-to-one message that you're trying to get someone to do something. For example, one that we're looking at now is statements. Right? So we mail statements out for all your accounts, and we would like to encourage our customers to have them delivered digitally, so via email and available in the app or in internet banking. One reason for that is because it's quite expensive to print and post. So if we've already asked you or given you the message and you've seen a message here on this device for, talking about this proposition, we don't want to do that again on a different device. Or if we've already shown you that message and you've responded to it on internet banking, on a web browser, and an hour later you're on our mobile app, we don't want to ask you give you that same message again. And so that's where we use Audience Manager to bring those things together and not show you that message. So that's how we are using those tools together. I think whenever you're bringing data like that together and you're creating a fluid experience, the key is to make it easy for the customer, but not creepy. Easy, but not creepy. Right? We're in the era where consumers are more aware of what marketers and what's happening with big data and how we're using it. So make the experience nice, make them feel like it's a valuable one, and they appreciate what you've done, but not creepy, because it's a fine line, and the moment it's creepy, you're out. I can't emphasize that point enough, that the last moment of friction is what you need to focus on. I think as we're all really good at the happy day scenario in terms of creating experiences, and if we can focus on the last moment of friction and removing it, then we will win and we will make nice experiences. I look at banks and we all offer very similar products, and the thing that will differentiate us is experience. And the opportunity to do that more than any other place is in the mobile channel. We're fortunate that our customers use our app so frequently. Some of them use it almost every day of the month, and the majority are using it between 25 and 28 discrete days in the month. Right? So that's, we are so fortunate that there's a part of our brand in their pocket or their handbag every day, and usually right next to their bedside table. So we need to make sure every moment that we have to interact with them is a good one. And I think that will go for any brand or any industry. I think about airlines. If you've travelled, you'll be flying back tonight or maybe tomorrow, and both, I'm from Melbourne, and Arun will be flying back tomorrow, both of us will, and we're on different airlines, and we've had in the last hour an experience when it comes to checking in. Right, so I'll tell you about my experience. I got a notification telling me I'm flying out tomorrow and check-in is available. I tapped on it, it opened up the app. I'm like, oh wow, it actually went to this section here that says check-in. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I pressed check-in and that says, do you have any explosive, hazardous materials? I said no. It came up green, you're checked in. I couldn't believe, that's it. Now, Arun, he was sitting here with his laptop a little bit earlier, and he was trying to, as part of his check-in process, had to put in his phone number, and he was struggling to find how to get the area code. No matter what he did, +1 or 1 or the word United or United States or US, it didn't matter what he tried to do. It was impossible. It actually took the brains of 4 technical people, 4 of industry experts sitting around here to actually enable that check-in. So, you think about that experience and the whole feeling you're left with. And the domestic airline that I'm flying with tomorrow, I'm going to have a really nice experience. Before I've even boarded the flight, I already feel good about that brand. I'm excited, right? And so people, they don't just buy products, we know that. They buy experiences. And your experience is only as good as the last moment of friction. And use the data to create fluid and engaging experiences across devices. And make sure that it's easy, but not creepy. So finally, you are the experience makers in this room, so make it a good one. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Just really quickly, I had a quick question for you, and then we'll pass to Shahrooz and Guzman. Can you quantify this? How does it really show up on the bottom line, this experience?
I think, yes, we can very easily, and I think that's what's a good thing about having really strong metrics and analytics. I've spoken about this at previous symposium, and we look at a simple process of completing an application form where we're able to identify the way that a field looks, the color of the font, even the way we ask the question, down to a dollar value in how one mistake on the UX, or not a mistake, but being suboptimal, a moment of friction, will cost. And so over a 3-week period, despite having lots of applications through our mobile app in a particular experience, we quantified we lost 11 mil in revenue on three moments of friction. Wow. And when we identified what they are, we're able to fix them easily. But that's how powerful those almost seemingly insignificant moments of friction can be.
Cool. Thank you. Shahrooz, let me pass it to you. Last but not least, I know everybody's probably getting a little hungry, so couldn't be anything more appropriate than some burritos.
Thank you. Do you have the clicker?
Oh, it's up there.
Cool.
Sorry.
Hey guys, I know I'm the last one between you and hopefully food. I don't know what your Friday nights are, but I will make sure I'll tease you with some nice PowerPoints about food. But thanks for having me. So GYG's Chief Digital Officer. What that means is essentially I'm a food taster / geek in residence. And I'm also the highest member of our loyalty program, which also means I'm the most personally and selfishly incentivized to improve our CX, which is pretty much AKA my own personal guest experience. So what that makes me is more like a chief burrito eater than anything else. But it's all about the guest experience, and that's really well baked into our DNA since day dot. I think for us, we started this whole journey a while back, but just before I get into that, just a quick show of hands. Who's heard of us before? Oh, wow, awesome. That's great. I thought I saw my people in the audience. I mean, we've had a lot of great wins where, like the big end of town, the Maccas and the like have been bleeding millennials, and, we've been very fortunate to have them call us home. And part of that is just the fact that we've been on this journey to reinvent fast food for the 21st century. And what we've seen is the way that we're focusing on high quality food, nutrition, but also making sure it's as accessible as everyone else finds fast food has really been a really good win for us, and we've doubled down on that. So, we want to make it easy, accessible, and essentially do all the things that you wish you could just have in the best of all your brands. And technology for us has always set us apart from our competitors. Our in-house operating system has been sort of custom built for speed. We try to do everything as fast as we possibly can. I'll get into that later, how that sort of makes a difference on the mobile side of things. But we're always sort of shaving every second down. So, we've got it to about an average of 450 burritos an hour that we can comfortably handle. And on certain days, if we really push the dial, then we can go up to about 1,000, which is like, a burrito getting churned out every 3 seconds or so. So for us, that pace is what defines our ability to service as many guests as we possibly can. So a little bit of background on the history. For those of you who didn't catch my colleague Lara's presentation before, we're an Aussie brand. We started in Newtown probably about 12 years ago, and it started with 2 New Yorkers, and they came over here, followed their girlfriends actually, and they just ate the food and realized that, wow, there's a really big opportunity to give authentic Mexican. So, you've got a hedge fund manager going, I could probably figure this out, and they burnt through a lot of cash. But they managed to get some traction. Later on, they got the original founders of McDonald's to come over as board members and to sort of help scale the business. And just yesterday, we announced a funding round of 44 mil, which is going to help us scale into the US. So it's an interesting sort of full circle, American-inspired Mexican brand serving in Australia, going back to the US. So hopefully they like what we've done there, but the speed is really what's going to set us apart, and hopefully our mobile experiences as well. And drive-through is a big area that we're doubling down on as well. We've got about 25 coming up. And that's an area that we feel very, very proud of, that we think we can actually innovate. Because it really hasn't been touched in the last 40 years. The experience can really be replicated in a lot of areas by just like a baby monitor and like a cone, which I've seen happen in the US whenever someone's drive-through closed down. But with food, it's all about peak times. We have 3 breakfast, morning, lunch, couple of hours that we've got to sell everything that we can. So that's where the speed comes in. And yeah, that NEX strategy, which is sort of anytime, anywhere, anyhow, is how we stay agnostic to that. So it's multiple channels. It's, dine-in, takeaway, drive-through, delivery, and drones as well now. And then, we make sure that people can order ahead via our native apps and pay, any number of channels, Apple Pay, Google Pay, and, get loyalty points and accrue towards our own in-house currency, GYG dollars. And also available on Uber Eats and Deliveroo and all that. So I talked about reinventing fast food. That's what we're all about. So clean, fresh, nutritious, and part of that is generating this cult, our core target audience of millennials, 18 to 35s. We keep our brand fun, cheeky, and we're obsessed with that guest experience. It's really baked into our DNA, and that number's probably closer to 6 mil. In actuality, but we've got some good traction, and it's all around making sure that everything we do is around how do we make our experience better. And having that full customizable menu on our app, and whether they have a specific requirement dietary-wise, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, pescatarian, bulking, shredding, the sort of list just goes on. but we make sure that we can sort of cover all that. You know, being clean, preservative-free is also very important to us. Animal welfare, free-range chicken are all areas that we focused on. But so that's just a bit of context about who we are and why we are and how we tick. But in terms of our mentality, it's really around, you know, adding value as opposed to describing value. So we don't just find customers for our product, we make remarkable experiences for our guests. And it's a bit of a Frankenstein quote, initially inspired by Seth Godin, but it talks to the importance of just being remarkable over the traditional just communication-only led approach. So, and our approach has always been that guest-driven mentality. So we're not about just making ads or, you know, finding customers to show that we're unique. It's something a lot more deeper than that. So we've done a lot of world firsts. I'll talk to this one in particular, where we started a drone delivery service. We partnered with Alphabet's innovation lab, and we've got an end-to-end AI and ML based approach, which doesn't need pilots, and you order on the app, and then a drone comes and delivers you food within 2 minutes, and it's kind of all magical. But the whole idea is, it's not something that we do just for smoke and mirrors. It's not a PR stunt. It's something that we actually believe that could change the entire landscape of delivery. And it's us thinking, how many steps are there between I'm hungry and I have a burrito in my hand? And anything between that, and it's a great point that Matthew raised, is, what are the points of friction, and how can we just quantify that and then go back and think, super long-term swing for the fences versus short-term, what can we deliver value on? So yes, we are actually flying burritos, and we've been doing it for about 12 months. We're the only ones in the world doing it at scale. But it's because we see a real business case and a value behind that. And getting back to the immediate tangible side of things is everything comes through native app. So we've had enormous wins on this. The growth's been great, but it's around understanding that if tech is going to be a differentiating factor, how can we come up with newer ways to decrease the time, especially if we're shaving it to the second in the kitchen. How do we make sure that in as few taps as possible, someone can order their favorite and basically turn up and miss the queue. So we do have some pretty crazy queues in our stores, but they move fast. So some cool use cases there, and really the reason why we sort of selected Branch, and we've just signed on, and we're just going through the integration process right now. So what I'm going to be talking about is sort of the potential of what really early wins are going to be. Is like, how do we get people at different stages of that funnel into there with as much context and personalization as we possibly can. So traditional order ahead app meets loyalty, meets payments is what we're sort of delivering on. Casual browsers coming into our M site, getting into the app and knowing contextually what they're looking to order. That's an easy one. Bit more engaged, use web interstitials to help them and help our conversion rates along the way. Again, super easy and should be out of the box. Then we start getting to much more personalized ones. So if we end up having a partnership with another brand, we can activate both sides of our audiences and then give them a nice warm welcome and actually, credit them for their support. So again, it's heavily based on, like, instead of losing all that context once users get into the App Store, it's saying, okay, you're not going into this black box. We are going to remember who you are and why you came. And then we start getting to more fun ones where we're thinking about, sharing your favorite combination, your favorite meal, and really, pulling in a bunch of data from social and elsewhere to actually make it look like, your friend has recommended that you try this, and actually, remembering that all the way through. So, a couple of key takeaways. What we've done really well, I think, is we experiment really fast, and where we've failed is where we've taken a bit too long and we've stayed away from what makes us unique. We're happy to iterate and understand what works, and just be acknowledging to say that, we can completely change our business and operating model if we need to make it work, and the adaptability is what actually makes it work. Testing, understanding root cause, bottlenecks, and solving before we scale definitely helps, especially when everything's run like clockwork and peak times. There's no real margin for error. moving the entire company. So being nimble is really important to us to make most of opportunities that other brands might be taking weeks or months just getting a memorandum of understanding together. And in that time, we've actually shifted finance, legal, operations, food, culinary, and actually got a proof of concept out, tested, real world customers, validated, and we're good to scale or not scale. Like, we just don't see the value of just sitting around trying to get all our paperwork in order. And saying yes more than saying no. We do take a lot of risks, but that's really just because we don't see the benefit of waiting too long. Our partners are there to support us, and our competitors are there to eat our lunch, so we kind of need to be the front foot. So that's it from me. Thank you all. I think that's fine. I'm going to hand it over to Eric now, and thanks for your time. Cheers.